Back in March, I made a video essay talking about the main narrative of God of War Ragnarok and whether or not it served its purpose as a finale to the Norse era. One thing I didn't discuss though is its combat. Does the combat fall short of what the Greek God of War games brought to the table? Also, does the post-game make the game worth returning to after an initial playthrough? Well, let's find out. As per tradition, let's start with the UI. At the bottom left, you'll see multiple bars and icons. The green one indicates your vitality and the orange one represents your rage. The design of this bar changes depending on what your equipped rage is. Next to that will be two icons that represent your weapon's light and heavy runic attacks, and the green icon indicating which relic you have equipped. Next to the vitality and rage meters is a meter for your triangle attack charge. On the right, you'll see an icon for whoever your companion is at the time, representing what their basic and special attacks are. There are two ways to go about defeating your enemies in this game. The first is obviously draining their health to zero. The second revolves around their stun meter. Blocking and parrying attacks and dealing damage barehanded will build up an enemy's stun meter. Once it's completely filled, they'll be staggered and open to a finisher. Performing a finisher on an enemy will kill them in a cinematic fashion, or if they have too much health, just deal a big amount of damage. God of War Ragnarok brings back the ring attacks from God of War 2018 but adds an extra one. Red ring attacks can't be blocked or parried, you have to dodge out of the way. Yellow ring attacks have to be parried. If you just block the attack, you'll be staggered. Double blue ring attacks have to be countered using what's called a shield strike. Pressing the block button twice will perform a shield strike, every shield having a unique one. Another line of defense an enemy will have is what I call elemental shields. An enemy's health bar will occasionally be covered in either a blue, orange, or gray shield. These can only be dispelled with a specific weapon. Blue shields can be countered with the Blades of Chaos, orange ones with the Leviathan Axe, and gray ones with the Draupnir Spear. Like the previous game, God of War Ragnarok has stats and stat bonuses that can benefit you. The stats are Strength, Defense, Runic, Vitality, Luck, and Cooldown. Strength, well, increases the strength of your basic attacks. Defense is also self-explanatory, reducing the damage taken from enemy attacks. Runic increases the strength of your runic attacks. For example, using a Frost runic attack with high runic will increase the rate at which enemies build up Frost from said attack. Vitality increases your health, but it also increases your stagger resistance. Luck is arguably the most useless and increases the amount of XP and hack silver gained from defeating enemies. Cooldown decreases the cooldown of your runic attacks. God of War Ragnarok also brings back the armor system from the previous game. You can purchase multiple armor sets from dwarven shops that come with their own set bonuses. Here are a few examples. The Fatebreaker chestplate gives you a strength and defense buff as well as stagger resistance when returning from rage, and the wrist and waist pieces increase the rate of rage gain. The Risen Snow set increases stun damage dealt to airborne enemies. Lunda's Lost chestplate will apply poison to your enemies if you block, parry, or deal damage barehanded, and the wrist and waist pieces will increase damage dealt to poisoned enemies. The Radiance armor set will activate realm shifts after a last minute dodge and increase melee damage during realm shifts. The Black Bear set specializes in last minute dodges, increasing the damage of your first hit after dodging, and throwing Bifrost shards at enemies after a last minute dodge. Speaking of Bifrost, there are multiple status effects that can negatively affect both you and your enemies. Frost, Burn, Sonic, Hex, Poison, Bifrost, Shock, and Daze. Frost will slow an enemy down and can easily be applied with the Leviathan Axe. Burn will, burn enemies and deal damage over time. This can be built up using the Blades of Chaos. Sonic is applied by Atreus and Freya's Sonic arrows, and enemies afflicted by Sonic will release a concussive wave that staggers enemies when damaged. Hex can also be applied by Atreus and Freya. All it does is increase the effectiveness of Frost and Burn. It can also propagate other status effects. For example, applying Burn on someone and using Hex will release an explosion. Poison will lower the power level of yourself and other enemies for a short duration. Bifrost will make a portion of the health bar purple. This health will regenerate over time, but gaining damage while still afflicted will deal regular damage on top of losing the health that was covered in Bifrost. Shock will immobilize enemies for a short duration. All three of these can be best applied using the Draupnir Spear's elemental siphon ability. The final one, Daze, will make enemies dizzy, making them unable to move for a short duration. This is best built up by parrying attacks. While I still stand by my previous statements of the combat in this game being lackluster when compared to God of War 3, I appreciate that they went through the effort of upgrading everything they could. Having 3 weapons allows you to mix and match them however many times the game will let you. The new death from above attacks add just a bit more variety to these combat encounters. The elemental shields add a new way for the enemies to counter you, and the new shield types add a new way for you to counter the enemies. Kratos is given 3 main weapons to use in God of War Ragnarök. These are the Leviathan Axe, Blades of Chaos, and Draupnir Spear. The Leviathan Axe was crafted by Brock and Sindri for Lothar the Just, designed to defend against Thor and later given to Kratos. The Blades of Chaos are an eternal sign of Kratos' servitude to Ares, the Greek god of war. The Draupnir Spear was crafted by the Lady of the Forge using the Draupnir ring specifically to kill Heimdall. Imagine being so much of a hater that you make a weapon whose sole purpose is to kill your op. The Leviathan Axe primarily deals frost damage and serves as a good middle ground, keeping the best of both the blades and the spear. The Blades of Chaos are a legacy weapon and deal primarily fire damage. They're great for closing the gap between you and your enemies and incinerating all those who cross you. The Draupnir Spear deals primarily force damage. It's the best ranged option in the game. The throwing speed is faster than that of the axe, and you can detonate up to 8 at a time, letting you quickly dispose of any ranged fighters in the arena. Each of these weapons has what I like to call a triangle attack. These are attacks that can be cast by, pressing or holding the triangle button. The Leviathan Axe's is called Frost Awaken. Holding the button will frost your axe and will simply perform an enhanced version of your R1 or R2 attacks.
No! You are not ready! Stay back!
The Blades is called Whiplash. Spamming triangle will wind up the blades and pressing R1 or R2 will swing the blades, doing small AoE damage. The Draupnir Spear has Draupnir's Call. Pressing triangle will detonate any spears you've thrown, and holding it will increase the damage the detonation deals. These weapons also have a sort of charged attack called Technique Skills. These are Permafrost for the axe, Immolation for the blades, and Maelstrom for the spear. You can build up your meter for these attacks by damaging enemies without taking damage yourself. Once the meter is fully charged, you can activate said technique skills to activate Glacial Permafrost, Burning Immolation, or Violent Maelstrom. All of these greatly increase melee damage for a short period but have unique bonuses. During Glacial Permafrost, the axe will fire waves of frost at enemies, slowing and freezing them. During Burning Immolation, the blade's normal attacks will end in explosions, and melee damage will give you rage. During Violent Maelstrom, you'll get a boost to your stun damage dealt. The 3 main weapons will also have handles that you can craft and equip. These will give you stat bonuses and also bonuses when reaching certain conditions. Examples include activating a Realm Shift when using a technique skill and getting a rage or a health burst with a finisher kill. Finally, regarding the weapons, each one comes with a set of light and heavy runic attacks. These are diet magic attacks that work on a cooldown system. You can equip 1 light and heavy runic attack per weapon, but you can collect 4 or 5 of each. There are 4 types of Spartan Rage you can equip. The default one is Fury. This leaves Kratos barehanded and lets you do a flurry of attacks. Dealing damage will heal you a small amount, but getting hit while Fury is active will shorten the duration. Valor is my personal favorite and gives you a small health boost. However, using Valor right before an enemy's attack lands will negate any incoming damage, give you extra health, and grant you a Blessing of Strength for 10 seconds. The third one, Wrath, lets you deal a significant amount of damage to a single enemy. The fourth one is only unlockable on a New Game Plus run, so I'll mention it later. Kratos can collect and equip relics to use in combat. These act similarly to the talismans from God of War 2018. They sort of act as a third magic ability that also works on a cooldown system. You can distort time by creating a Realm Shift, deal AoE stun damage, create poison hazards, and everything in between. One other thing Kratos can use is the Amulet of Yggdrasil. Throughout the game you'll be able to upgrade it to 9 slots and fill these slots with enchantments. These enchantments can either be simple stat bonuses or apply conditional bonuses. But what's a good offense without a good defense? The Guardian Shield getting damaged paves the way for different types of shields to be introduced. The Guardian Shield pretty much has no buffs or debuffs and just acts as a normal shield. My personal favorite, the Dauntless Shield, is a high risk, high reward shield that focuses on parries. Parrying an attack at the last second will charge it up, and shield striking will deal massive amounts of stun damage. The Stonewall shield is meant for a more tanky approach and absorbs damage taken while blocking. Once enough damage is stored, shield striking causes a huge AoE stun explosion. The Shatterstar's shield is all about mobility as it gains charge while moving and releases a shockwave when striking. The Onslaught shield is also as lackluster as Shatterstar, as all it does is make you charge at the enemy when shield striking. There's another shield that's also exclusive to New Game Plus. The one thing Ragnarök does objectively better than God of War 3 is that you have more options, especially when it comes to defense. In 3, you did have more weapons, but the weapons felt like standard archetypal ARPG weapons that didn't stand out from each other. I pretty much exclusively used the Blades of Exile and occasionally swapped to Mnemosyne and Cestus when there was an Onyx enemy. The game doesn't encourage you to use all the options you have. You certainly can juggle between everything, but you don't necessarily get rewarded for it. Ragnarök, on the other hand, pretty much forces you to use everything at your disposal. Let's say you have an enemy immune to the axe, well, use the blades to burn them. An enemy is sitting on a perch throwing fireballs at you, chuck a spear at them and blow them sky high. There are enemies in the game that are both resistant and weak to all three weapons, so each one has their time to shine. And the shields encourage different playstyles. Did you forget you were playing God of War, not Sekiro? Dauntless is right there. You want to take a passive approach to combat because you can't time your parries for shit? Stonewall has you covered. The Draupnir Spear is also one of the best weapons the series has introduced. It has incredible range, honestly better than the Leviathan axes. Some of its runic attacks like Hold Your Charge are best for late game content, giving you much needed resistance to elements like Poison and Bifrost, and it's especially helpful during fights like Gnaw. You also have the ability to detonate your spears, adding a level of complexity and uniqueness that hasn't been seen in the series before. This doesn't get rid of the biggest problem Ragnarök suffers from. The combat is too grounded for its own good. Yes, I'm going to be bitching about the jumping. What made God of War 3 a near perfect hack and slash experience was setting your enemies in the air and slamming them down only to bring them right back up. You have both a vertical and horizontal playground to utilize to your heart's content. You don't get that here. Yes, you can launch enemies into the air, multiple moves do exclusively that, but if you can't also jump and extend your combos, it's almost not even worth it.
Let me break it down for you, Mark.
Life is good, but it can be better.
This section is going to be exclusively focused on Atreus as a playable character. Atreus is only playable in different story missions. He's unavailable both as a companion and playable character after the main story. Atreus plays quite differently from Kratos. He uses his bow as both a ranged and melee weapon, smacking the shit out of his enemies. Using his bow to fire arrows at his enemies will inflict much more stun damage. He also borrows his runic summons from his companion version and uses them as his heavy runic attacks. Because of this, he gets a unique set of light runic attacks that just boil down to enhanced bow shots. He also has a unique skill tree that differs from his companion form. Plus, he gets his own Spartan Rage. This turns him into a wolf that lets him claw and bite at his enemies, partially regenerating HP during this time. Unlike Kratos, he doesn't have a set of different shields he can equip, he only has his magic one. My opinions on his combat are honestly very mixed. There are some parts of it that I do like. It shares the same general gameplay loop as Kratos, but has a bit more range because he has a bow to work with. I also didn't expect him to flesh out his combat since, again, you can't play as him in the post-game. But, I don't know, something about it just doesn't fully click for me. Like I said, I don't really have much to say about it because it's just there. It doesn't do anything for me. Here, I'll discuss how Freya as a companion works. The original plan was to have all of the companions in this section, but none of the other companions stand out from each other. Freya is equipped with 2 weapons and 4 runic attacks. Her default weapon, the Thrungva, increases the amount of stun damage she deals. Her second weapon, the Mardol, is unlocked after completing the side quest Freya's Missing Piece. The Mardol has a faster attack speed and applies Bifrost onto enemies. She also has multiple armor sets she can equip, but like Atreus and unlike Kratos, these are purely cosmetic. Freya's first runic attack, Sather Exhale, shoots a poison cloud that spawns in smaller clouds affecting enemies in a small AoE. Steel Harmony is unlocked after completing Freya's missing piece and performs a series of cross slashes applying both stun and Bifrost. Invoke the Storm is unlocked after completing Freya's gift and creates a large field of electric fireflies, damaging enemies and chaining lightning when exploding. The Queen's Roar is the strongest runic summon in the game and is rightfully unlocked after killing Gná. Freya rises in the air and deals a massive shockwave. If this ability is leveled up, the shockwave will apply a massive amount of Sonic or Hex, depending on which one she has equipped. During combat, Freya can switch between her Vanir and Valkyrie form. Her Vanir form plays more of a support role, allowing her to grab enemies for you to attack and throw rocks at enemies. While she's in her Valkyrie form, she'll directly attack enemies with her swords. She can launch them in the air, or after Kratos knocks an enemy back, she can dash towards them and deal a massive amount of damage. I really like how Freya as a companion works. She can play a support role, lowering the enemy's power levels, and also dish out some damage herself with her Valkyrie form. And depending on how you utilize Sonic and Hex, you could possibly clear out entire rooms of enemies if you know how elemental reactions work. I feel like she's an underappreciated aspect of the game. In this section, I'll go over every activity that's unique to a specific realm. The general post-game stuff is in the next section. Asgard, Jotunheim, and Helheim are the only realms that literally have nothing to do after the story. Asgard doesn't even exist in the endgame since Ragnarök deleted it. You can still visit Jotunheim, specifically Ironwood and Helheim, but there really isn't much to do in those realms. Muspelheim brings back the Trials of Muspelheim from 2018, but with a twist. Here it's called the Crucible. You still have minigame challenges to complete, but it's not a set path of challenges that ends in a Valkyrie fight. Instead, you choose from one of 3 challenges that corresponds with a rune. Complete enough challenges and you'll get the combination challenges, which require you to mix and match the runes from earlier. There are 6 of these challenges to complete, like surviving for 5 minutes and completing a mini boss rush. Muspelheim is also where you'll challenge Queen Gná.
Traitor! Gná! She's fierce. Attack only if you think we are ready. It's sigil magic!
Rise! Rise! Asgard's blood is on you!
Careful, brother. You're covered in Bifrost.
Unworthy!
Not yet.
We'll be back for you.
I'll be waiting.
After the fight, Kratos will hold Gná by her wings while she scorns Freya. Freya tries to console her, saying she understands the rage Gná feels, but Gná tells her to finish the job, so Freya reluctantly beheads her. Niflheim has 3 major purposes. The first is the training arena. There's a small arena where you'll be able to pick and choose your companion and fight against enemies of your choosing. It's just a training arena, what else am I supposed to say? The second is the Raven Tree. The Eyes of Odin favor for God of War 2018 returns, but it's got some cool changes. When you hunt down a set number of Odin's ravens, you'll earn a reward from the Raven Tree. These can be rare resources, a heavy runic attack for each weapon, and the Hilt of Forsponder, rewarded for killing all 48. The third is the Favor, the Broken Prison. When exploring this nearby prison in Niflheim, at the very bottom of it, you'll find Tyr, the real Tyr this time. Turns out he was actually imprisoned in Asgard this entire time, and the destruction of the realm sent him here, somehow. After this, he'll be found in random places like Midgard and the Spark of the World. Alfheim has 2 major regions, the Strand and the Barrens. The Strand is more for the main story, but there are a few collectibles you can find. The Barrens, however, is where the real meat of the realm is. The biggest thing you can do is the Secret of the Sand's Favor. As I briefly elaborated on in part 1, this favor follows you freeing 2 giant jellyfish called Hafgafas from the Dark Elves. Freeing these 2 will open up more of the region for you to explore. You can explore a temple dedicated to Freyr and engage in the Lost Pages scavenger hunt, which nets you 4 different relics.
The light from the crystals. It is in the sand now.
Would you look at that? Freyr's gift endures after all. Or should I say, his presence?
You are not funny.
Svartalfheim has a fairly decent amount of side content to complete. You can go to the outskirts of Nidavellir and free a caged Leenbacher, opening a new area to explore and netting yourself an achievement. There's also an abundance of mines and caves you can explore and get some pretty cool loot in the process. Finally, after completing Forging Destiny, you'll be able to hunt down Durlin's Lost Hammer, a symbol of his and Faye's rebellion against Odin. Midgard also has a fair amount of endgame stuff to do. You can complete the Animal Instincts favor where you clear out core raider camps and deepen the bonds between Kratos and the sled dogs.
Good. Good boys. Good girls.
There's also a side quest you can complete in Midgard called Sigurd's Curse, which tells you the story of her family and learn about why she wanted to become a Valkyrie. Midgard is also the realm where you challenge King Hrolf Kraki, specifically at the King's Grave. Vanaheim is probably the most content-rich realm out of all of them. Vanaheim is split into two major sections, the Crater and the Wilds. The Wilds is where a majority of the main story content takes place, although there are a few general endgame things to complete. The biggest thing of note is the Lunda's Lost Orb favor where you fetch your dog's chew toy. The Crater, however, has a lot to do. As I lightly elaborated on in part 1, there's a side quest that has you learn more about the lightning bolt in the middle of the crater. You'll learn that Faye fought Thor using the Leviathan axe and caused the bolt to appear, similar to the Kratos and Thor fight in Midgard. There's also a series of side quests called Crater Hunts. These are mini quests that revolve around you hunting down multiple reptilian creatures such as dragons, drakes, and drekkies. Vanaheim also has the most intricate puzzles. Using the scepter Skull and Hadi gifted you will change the landscape and open and close different paths depending on the time of day. Lastly, Vanaheim has a side quest called A Stag for All Seasons. This follows you rescuing the 4 stags of the seasons, all being scattered around the crater. I love how all the realms here feel very unique and different from each other, not just in design but also in the content you're provided. Vanaheim is a giant jungle, so it only makes sense that you'll be hunting down a bunch of dragons. Muspelheim, in God of War at least, is the realm of combat. Not only are there difficult challenges to complete, but the hardest boss fight in the game, more on her later. Svartalfheim has an air of mystery to it and is rich in lore. Freeing the Linkbacker will let you dive deeper into Mimir's story, and retrieving the Hammer of Rebellion will let you learn about Svartalfheim's lore. There is an overlap in content between the realms, but they stand out enough to not feel like I'm doing the same thing when I'm clearly not. This section will be focused on all the general post-game stuff, so anything that is unlocked to a specific realm. You're going to be spending a lot of time hunting down collectibles. Some of these collectibles are artifacts. Artifacts come in sets depending on what region they're in, and they tell a continued story about that region. You can sell any artifacts you collect to the blacksmith and get hack silver. Each realm will also have a specific flower you can collect. Collecting all 9 will get you the florist achievement. Hey guys, while editing this video I forgot about a specific set of artifacts that I wanted to bring attention to. This is Kvasir's poems. Kvasir in Norse mythology was the son of Aesir and Vanir. He was a poet that spread knowledge and wisdom all across the land until he was killed by the dwarves Fjalar and Galar. His blood was drained and mixed into some honey, creating the meat of poetry. I'm bringing attention to this because his poems are actually all references to first-party PlayStation IPs. The Sunrise of Nothingness references Horizon Zero Dawn. Large Society Ground Orb, the performance, references MLB The Show. We Who Remain Part the Second references
The Last of Us Part 2.
Tool and Bang references Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Afterlife Abandonment references Death Stranding. Visions After Rest references Dreams. Spirits Within Walls references Concrete Genie. Celestial Construct references Astrobot Rescue Mission. Upon Pursuing a Place Not Marked on Maps references Uncharted Drake's Fortune. Trip references Journey. Eastern Spectre references Ghost of Tsushima. An Organization in the Future references The Order 1886. Sanguinity references Bloodborne. And finally, The Dead Do Not Ride references Days Gone. I just think this is a really neat Easter egg that makes this particular set of artifacts worth collecting. I'm bringing attention to this because his poems are actually all references to first-party PlayStation IPs. The Sunrise of Nothingness references Horizon Zero Dawn. Large Society Ground Orb, the performance, references MLB The Show. We Who Remain Part the Second references
The Last of Us Part 2.
Tool and Bang references Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Afterlife Abandonment references Death Stranding. Visions After Rest references Dreams. Spirits Within Walls references Concrete Genie. Celestial Construct references Astrobot Rescue Mission. Upon Pursuing a Place Not Marked on Maps references Uncharted Drake's Fortune. Trip references Journey. Eastern Spectre references Ghost of Tsushima. An Organization in the Future references The Order 1886. Sanguinity versus Bloodborne. And finally, The Dead Do Not Ride versus Days Gone. I just think this is a really Easter egg because it's reference. Sometime after the Reckoning mission, Ratatoskr will ask you to collect all 6 of the Lean Worms. Since Nithog is dead, he's the only one capable of nurturing them so they don't destroy Yggdrasil. They'll be scattered across the realms, so you can bring them back to Ratatoskr to get a Draupnir Spear upgrade. The Eyes of Odin favor from God of War 2018 returns, but with a little bit of a twist. Throughout the 9 realms, 48 spectral ravens will be hiding or flying in obscure spots. You're tasked with killing the specters so the ravens can rest easy. After killing a certain amount of ravens, you must return to the Raven Tree in Niflheim, where you'll be rewarded based on how many you kill. However, when you kill all the ravens, you'll meet the Raven Keeper, who's angry at you for freeing the ravens. You'll follow her to the training arena where a boss fight will begin. When a quarter of her health is gone, the fight will switch over to the Pale One, a giant ice dragon. After killing the Pale One, you can finish off the Raven Keeper and end this questline. That's all for the boring collectible shit, now on to the fun stuff. Occasionally you'll find Draugr holes containing the Hateful, which is just a beefed up version of a regular Draugr. There are a total of 6 in the game. Completing one will get you a Chaos Spark, and completing all 6 will let you combine the Chaos Sparks to get a Chaos Flame, which is used to upgrade the blades. After completing the realms at war, you can find remnants of Asgard, different Einherjar camps scattered across the 9 realms. The reward for completing these is just Kratos and Freya XP. Similar to the Draugr holes, some of Garm's realm tears will be scattered across the realms. You'll need to clear these holes by defeating enemies and defending Freya while she dispels the tears. Again, like Draugr holes, your completion reward is a Frozen Flame, an upgrade material for the Leviathan Axe. Do you remember in part 1 during the Word of Fate when I mentioned Kratos picking up a sword hilt important in the post-game? Well, here we are. Starting and forging Destiny, Kratos can use that sword at various Berserker gravestones in the realms. There are a total of 12 gravestones, 11 have you fight regular Berserkers, while the last one is reserved for the strongest one, King Hrolf. The Berserkers all share similar movesets but have some differences. The one in Niflheim can rapidly inflict Bifrost. The one in Vanaheim will summon save their enemies to fuck your shit. The one in Alfheim, that's literally a 2v3. Throughout your journey, you'll unlock multiple rewards. These include the Berserker Armor set, which contains multiple relic bonuses, and the Hilt of Skofnung. The hilt summons 12 spectral swords to attack your enemies, dealing a massive amount of damage. I'm honestly surprised by the amount of stuff there is to do after completing the game. If you were to play the game the same way I did my first time, then it'd take you about 30 hours to finish the main story. Here I have about 70 hours on this save file, 40 of which being all of this stuff. Unlike most single-player story-based games, there might actually be more post-game content than main story content, which is really surprising. As I mentioned in part 1, God of War Ragnarok received New Game Plus as a post-launch update. After completing the game for the first time, you're given the option to start the game over again using a playthrough save. However, you'll still be able to retain all of the armor, weapons, abilities, and resources you acquired in your previous playthrough. And if you, like me, are too much of a pussy to attempt this on a brand new save, you can complete the game on Give Me God of War. This is the hardest difficulty in the game. All enemies are given runic armor, making them immune to stagger caused by runic attacks. Enemies will start at power level 7 and can go up to 10. If you're not comfortable with this difficulty, you can lower it in the settings. However, unlike the other ones, you can't return to Give Me God of War if you abandon it. Here, I'll go over all the new additions New Game Plus brings.
I've been waiting for this.
For starters, there is now an increased level cap. There are 4 new levels you can upgrade to, 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, and 10. However, Atreus' gear can't be upgraded further on account of him being unavailable in the post-game. You can upgrade to these new levels using new resources: Scap Slag, Primal Flames for your weapons, Celestial Fossils for your accessories, Forsaken Breaths for your shields, and Mountain Roots for your armor. If you complete a side quest you already finished on your previous save, you'll be rewarded these resources instead. When upgrading weapons to level 9.1, you'll be awarded a Gilded Coin, which you can use to buy new enchantments from the shop. There are also brand new additions that come with the New Game Plus save. You begin the game with the Black Bear armor set, which applies Bifrost on enemies after a last minute dodge and increases your damage after dodging. The Sparta armor starts at power level 1 and puts you at 0 stats and 0 perks. The Zeus and Ares armor sets from God of War 2018 also return. The Ares set is purchased from the Dwarven shops, and the Zeus set is unlocked after killing Gná and completing Remnants of Asgard. You also unlock the Spartan Aspis shield. This is a harder version of the Guardian shield, boasting a much tighter parry window but stronger counterattacks in return. Using the game's transmogrification system, you can change your armor's appearance to look like another piece of armor, but still retain the original armor's stats and bonuses. As an example, I changed my Black Bear armor to look like the Pride of Sparta armor. However, weapon attachments and shield runs can't be transmogrified. There are also new rewards you earn in New Game Plus, depending on whether or not you completed the activity previously. For example, if you defeat a berserker you already fought, you'll earn an enchantment that solely focuses on upgrading your base stats. The only exception to this is King Hrolf. Killing him again will give you the flawless berserker armor. Some enemies have their attack patterns changed just for New Game Plus. King Hrolf and Gná gain new moves, and the berserkers leave behind new arena hazards, making them more challenging. The optional Hateful and Ormstunga bosses also get brand new moves in New Game Plus. Easy enemies will also be able to turn elite on a whim, increasing their power level. If you complete the Valhalla DLC and start a New Game Plus save, you'll unlock multiple new cosmetics when reaching the first Dwarven shop. Firstly, you'll unlock the classic appearance for Kratos, allowing you to play as his God of War 1 version. You also unlock the classic Sparta armor set. This acts similarly to the normal Sparta set, though the colors are brighter as, again, a nod to God of War 1. You forego stats and perks in exchange for an increased bonus to strength and vitality. There's also a new Spartan rage for you to unlock, Legacy. This lets Kratos summon the Blade of Olympus, last seen in God of War Ascension. This allows Kratos to deal incredibly high damage while draining rage very slowly. You can perform basic attacks and shield strike during Legacy, and parrying attacks with the blade will refill your rage. However, like Wrath, it only heals you for a small amount. Before I start this, I want to say that I fought every single one of these bosses on Give Me God of War, so I think I'm qualified to know what I'm talking about. I was also going to go over every boss in the game, but not all of them are unique or even good. Some of them get repurposed into common enemies, so bosses like the Huntress, the Drekkies, and Olaf Knudsen, and common enemies repurposed as bosses like the Hateful won't be included. If you earn an achievement for the boss and or it's not repurposed in any other way, I'll include it. Also, I'll be saving my review of Tyr's fight for part 3 since he's Valhalla exclusive. For what it's worth, Bjorn, or in layman's terms Atreus, is a good opening boss. I always say the job of an opening boss is to teach the player the basic mechanics, nothing too in-depth, but again, your basic offensive and defensive mechanics. There are literally tutorial boxes that tell you about the ring attacks, but its moves aren't too complex. They're wide enough for you to easily be able to telegraph them. It's vulnerable enough to stun damage, so you can be taught about what happens when you inflict a boss with stun. Like I said, it does its job as a tutorial. Thor, on the other hand, holy moly, the first encounter with him is absolutely stellar. Santa Monica knew that we were all eagerly awaiting for the chance to fight Thor in this game, and both fights, not just the first one, delivered. It's a cinematic spectacle from flying to the temple to the clash between the axe and Mjolnir and Kratos' slow-mo punch. And of course, that awesome moment when Thor kills Kratos. Halfway through the fight, when Thor starts using Mjolnir against us, it actually feels like a fight between two powerful gods. This fight helps cap off one of the best video game openings in history. Now, I'm not sure if this is a popular or unpopular opinion, but I didn't like Gryla. Don't get me wrong, it's a very unique concept, at least for God of War. You can't damage her directly, so you have to target her cauldron. But on higher difficulties, Atreus is just too goddamn squishy and doesn't deal enough damage to make the fight progress at a natural pace. I spent about 4 hours trying to get this fight completed because if I got hit even once, I would die and the checkpoints would be too far and few between. Vanadis, I feel, serves more as a way to show the player why Freya is respected as a queen. Let me explain. She's obviously not going to be as strong as Sigrun was in God of War 2018. Sigrun was an optional endgame boss, and Vanadis is a boss required for narrative progression. Throughout the game thus far, Freya wasn't really putting in the work to kill Kratos. Now she's able to show her prowess in battle. She's quick to remind you that she isn't just the Witch of the Woods, she's the Guardian of the Vanir. People who never went through the effort of hunting down the Valkyries in 2018 could get a small taste of what the fights were like, since Vanadis shares multiple moves. Nithog is definitely in the top 5. Setting aside Freya's backseat gaming, it has a fun gameplay loop and makes use of multiple arenas, and also helps the player learn about Hex's elemental effects. And the way it dies is pretty cool too. It doesn't necessarily stand out, but it's a damn good time. The Frost Phantoms feel a lot easier than they should be. Their attacks are very easily telegraphed, and you can deal a surprising amount of damage after stunning them. Really, the hardest part of the fight is trying to locate the stones if they are in obvious locations. They feel more like a bump in the road than an actual boss experience. Garm, on the other hand, is the most true to form God of War boss here in my opinion, arguably more so than Odin. I've always been a fan of the huge, beastly enemies in the series, especially since they're often an underlooked aspect of the franchise. Garm in his arena are ginormous. He's frantic in his attacks, even using his chains as a weapon. There's also that cool fake out when he returns and starts the chase scene. During the final stage of the fight, you feel cornered, kind of like an injured dog. And it's also a very cinematic fight, from Kratos jumping on his nose to Atreus imbuing Fenrir's soul into him. I already went over the Heimdall fight's narrative relevance in part 1 and how it's a psychological character analysis for Kratos, but one thing I didn't mention is how this also dives into Heimdall's own psyche and serves as a test of martial prowess. While Thor's fights were a test of godly strength, Heimdall tested our hand-to-hand combat skills. We already discussed Kratos' flurry of haymakers leading to the first punch, but for the first and second phase, Heimdall refuses to attack Kratos directly, given his power of foresight and pompous attitude. This all lets us directly battle Heimdall in a battle of wits and skills, making use of the Draupnir spear and the hidden technique it has, that being its detonation. Even a bifrosted arm isn't enough for Heimdall to outsmart Kratos given his centuries of battle knowledge. On first glance, you'd expect Hrist and Mist to be extremely deadly together given you're fighting two Valkyries at once, but like Vanadis, they're a lot easier than you'd expect. They share a single health bar so you can focus on just one. Plus, one of them will focus on Atreus, making it more of a 1v1. And like Vanadis, it's a Valkyrie fight required for narrative progression, so it's not going to be as difficult as Sigrid. Not much to say here, it's a decent fight, but not exactly memorable. Thor's fight during Ragnarök is absolutely raw as hell. First time around, Thor just wanted to get you to pay him back for killing his sons. Now he's determined to kill you, and this is evident in his moves. His moves are a lot more erratic, and now they're imbued with lightning, making for a more chaotic fight. It's essentially the opening fight cranked up to 11. This is the Thor fight fans wanted. The first time he was holding back, now he's dead set on killing us, giving us a version of Thor that is completely menacing and makes for a stellar boss. Odin, on the other hand, is kind of a letdown. I know I said originally that he wasn't supposed to be powerful or manipulative, but man, it's still kinda disappointing how easy the fucker is. Like, I only died once when fighting him on Give Me God of War. Baldur left more of an impression as a final boss than he did. All of his moves are way too easily telegraphed. He doesn't have that many moves in the first place. On its own, it's not a terrible fight, but it's the fact that it's the last one. Like, of the entire Norse era. Well, if you don't include Tyr. I honestly liked fighting the Berserkers more than I did the Valkyries. Yeah, they were tough as shit, but they were supposed to be. They all share similar basic moves, but each one has a bunch of moves or mechanics that are different from each other, making it so you aren't fighting the same boss 11 times. They really make you use everything at your disposal and serve as a true test of your mastery. I've spent multiple hours of time fighting the bosses, but each win felt extremely satisfying and well earned. Of the two big endgame boss fights, King Hrolf is objectively easier than Gná, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. He does have more health than Gná, that's an objective fact, but you fought 11 Berserkers leading up to this fight, and nearly all of his moves are borrowed from the others, and he doesn't have any summons and isn't accompanied by other Berserkers. Sure, it might take you some time to complete since it's easy for him to one-tap you, but it should be a breeze since you've pretty much mastered his entire kit before even fighting him. Gná, on the other hand, is the hardest boss in the entire fucking franchise. She's basically an upgraded version of Sigurd. The biggest upgrade is that she can rapidly inflict Bifrost. One hit taken and you've just lost nearly all of your health. You only have 1 second to determine if she's going to be doing an unblockable jab attack or a spin attack a shield can tank. A lot of her moves are like this, you can't easily predict them, so you have to have lightning fast reflexes in order to counter it. The iconic aerial stomp attack is back and stronger than ever. On higher difficulties, if you get hit once, you will die. And later on, she'll intentionally delay the attack, so you have to choose the right time to dodge. But beating her is also one of the most satisfying moments of the entire franchise. Plus, you do get the best runic summon in the game, so there's that. Remember back in the Sekiro video when I mentioned atmosphere being the driving force behind any OST? No, you don't, so that's why I'm mentioning it. Ragnarok's soundtrack pretty much is entirely atmospheric. Bear McCreary basically created an upgraded version of 2018's soundtrack and completely capitalized on the atmosphere each of the realms provides. Vanaheim has a lot of flutes, drums, and whistles, which makes me feel like I'm in a jungle, which is perfect for the realm that's just a huge jungle. It makes me feel like I'm about to go exploring a brand new unknown area, which I pretty much did when I first visited Vanaheim. The second half of the main Vanaheim theme where the battle song plays kinda sounds like wartime music. Again, makes sense since the Vanni are a bunch of hardened warriors, well except for Freyr. Midgard is a proper reflection of the state of the realm. Ever since Baldur's death, Fimbulwinter has come in full swing. Now raiders are claiming outposts all across Midgard and killing anyone that gets in their way. It's essentially a war zone. That's added on top of the fact that there's a vengeful goddess waiting to kill Kratos. That's the same vibe I get from listening to the accompanying OST. However, the second half starts to feel slightly more uplifting, which ends up becoming fitting when Midgard actually gets a baby blue sky. Jotunheim has a very whimsical and mysterious feel to it. This is the only realm we barely knew anything about. Our only experience with it was the ending to 2018. Now we return to Jotunheim and it's a fragrant paradise with flowers and giant wolves and shit. The OST helps bring the player into the same fantasy world Atreus is in. Svartalfheim is a very lively tune. The song goes hand in hand with some of the marshy wetlands, especially given the color palette of the entire realm. It's very bright, with a bunch of water, sand, bright blue skies, mines, and bustling cities. The instruments used here are also a very nice touch. It almost sounds like something Rabe would perform. Rabe's Lament is a tribute song. Funerals aren't just for grieving over the dead, it's also for celebrating their lives. The song portrays both of these themes. The opening is very slow and somber, but as the song progresses, it gets louder and higher pitched. It's a celebration of Brock's life. Not only that, but the first few seconds of the song are actually a slowed down version of the Svartalfheim OST. This tells the player that Brock was just as much a part of Svartalfheim as anyone else. The realm is worse off without him to bring a sense of liveliness and disorder. The opening of the Hammer of Thor tells you that a storm is coming, that storm being the god of thunder. When the vocals kick in, that storm has arrived. With the fight in full swing, the intensity kicks up a notch. The song overall has a godly vibe to it, which helps prove the point I mentioned about Thor's fight. It's a test of strength between two gods. This might not be Bear's intention, but I view Ragnarok as a song that portrays the destructive nature and hopelessness of the event. It remixes the main motif of the Norse series, but adds an echoing choir in the background and slowly crescendos until the end. After the song reaches its climax, there's a slow section that really nails the hopelessness. This song is coupled with shots of countless people dying, both warriors and the innocent. It also doesn't help that they are getting their asses kicked the entire time. It helps players see Ragnarok for what it is, needless bloodshed. This is also the song that plays during the scene with the Norns. Hopelessness is also present here since the Norns believe Kratos is going to start Ragnarok because it's in his nature to kill gods. There's a lot more I can say about this soundtrack, but I don't want to drag it on. Point is, this soundtrack is purely atmospheric. Bear managed to create unique and captivating songs for each realm and help give them an identity of their own. The OST plays a major part in defining each realm, that way no two locations are the exact same. However, despite all this, it should not have won Best Soundtrack over Metal Hellsinger. Yes, I'm still salty about that. God of War Ragnarok is a major improvement over 2018. 2018 redefined the series by turning a linear hack-and-slash platformer into a semi-open world ARPG, but forgot some of the key elements that made the Greek games good in the first place. Ragnarok takes the mediocre combat of 2018 and makes it more in-depth and encourages player creativity by giving you more options. The countless shields, the 3 weapons to use, and 4 different kinds of Spartan Rage. Plus, the technique attacks act as a reward for landing so many hits without taking damage. On top of the combat improvements, the post-game is very in-depth and gives the player multiple raises to come back. Between the collectibles, hunting down Einherjar, and testing your strength with the Berserkers, you can arguably get more mileage from the post-game than the main story. Overall, I had a lot of fun playing this game, more so than 2018, and 100%ing the game is incredibly satisfying, especially for trophy hunters.
At least it can feel the wind on its face.
May it provide some comfort.
Hey y'all, thanks for making it to the end of the video. It is admittedly kind of weird that this video only ended up being 45 minutes long as opposed to the 2.5 hours part 1 was, but I'm still happy with the end product. Before I end this, I have a few things to say. Firstly, Stellar Blade. If you guys remember, back as early as March, I said I would be making a review for Stellar Blade at the end of the month, and I had every intention of doing so. However, the same week the game dropped, I got a surprise $140 bill from my dentist because an appointment from October wasn't covered by my insurance. I also had to pay my phone bill the week after, so it's safe to say I was pretty low on funds at the time. By the time I had enough money to afford the game, it was well over 2 weeks since it dropped, so I figured I'll just get it later. Secondly, you may have noticed that I changed the title of the series. If you haven't, let me explain. The original title of this series was How God of War Ragnarok Succeeded and Failed. However, shortly after my friends and I recorded our first Jackbox Let's Play, a friend of a friend joined the voice call. Keep in mind, this guy has been doing nothing but spewing vitriolic hatred towards Part 1 and even the Mario Wonder review. This is added on top of the fact that he was drunk as shit. Despite all this, he managed to give genuine, thoughtful criticism regarding Part 1. His biggest criticism was that the Succeeded and Failed name didn't fit the content and theme of this series that I was going for. After taking it in, I eventually agreed with him and changed the title to the Retrospective one it has now. As for how the next few months are looking, I'm obviously going to start working on Part 3 ASAP. Believe it or not, I actually have the script almost completed and all my gameplay recorded. I was working on that in conjunction with Part 2, which explains why it took so long for this video to come out. This part is going to be entirely focused on Valhalla, and I'm really excited to work on it because I love that DLC so much. As for reviews, I'm not going to be certain with them anymore considering Stellar Blade. However, I'm contemplating making reviews for Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero. Yes, they are gacha games, but they are completely free, so affording them won't be an issue. It just depends on whether or not I'll actually enjoy them. Second, even though it'll be over a week since the game dropped, I'm thinking about making a Hades 2 review since I plan on picking it up this week. It'll help fill the inevitable drought in between parts 2 and 3. Thirdly, Jade Shadows. This is Warframe's next major update releasing in June. Normally I don't cover updates like the 7 Crimes of Coolerville and Abyss of Daggett, but Jade Shadows is coming with a cinematic quest. This means that it'll actually fit the review structure I tend to use. Depending on how long the quest is and how many major gameplay additions there are, I'll consider making a review. As for what I plan on doing after I finish this God of War series, I have one idea, though I don't know if I'll actually do it. This has been on the back burner for the past 2 years, and it's called An Extensive History of the Hack and Slash Genre. This video would give an overview of over 30 hack and slash games that popularized or redefined the genre from 1985 to 2024. The script was originally 57 pages and I had it all completed. However, when clearing my Google Drive, my dumbass somehow permanently deleted the original script, as well as the scripts for my God of War 3, Katana Zero, and Metal Hellsinger videos. That obviously means I'll have to rewrite it all, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem considering I wrote part 1. Later on in the year, I'll also make a review of Rivals 2. I supported the Kickstarter, so I'll be getting a copy of the game when it releases. I also might make a review of Black Ops 6, or whatever the new Call of Duty is going to be named. Last thing I want to say is this, and I mean all of this wholeheartedly. Fuck you, Microsoft, you spineless pieces of shit. How the fuck could you just shut down Tango Gameworks without any warning whatsoever? You claim that you want more small games that get rewards like Hi-Fi Rush, and then have the audacity to shut down the studio that made the fucking game you reference? Hi-Fi Rush was the only first-party Microsoft title that made me actually give a damn about the company. Not even Halo made me feel the same way. I have seen so many potential reasons they were shut down, like the game not selling well because of Game Pass, or because they were pitching a sequel that would have been 3 to 4 years away, but none of these excuses are reasonable enough to justify shutting down a studio as precious as Tango. Now we're never gonna get The Evil Within 3 or Hi-Fi Rush 2. Phil Spencer, Matt Booty, Sarah Bond, I don't give a fuck who was or wasn't responsible for the shutdowns of not only Tango but Arkane Austin and Alpha Dog. Arkane especially, because they didn't want to make Redfall. The game's failure was the fault of Microsoft. All these executives can kiss my ass. Microsoft, you are a company worth trillions. You spent a combined $80 billion buying ZeniMax Media and Activision Blizzard. You mean to tell me none of this money could have been distributed to these studios you unjustly gutted? Fuck this company.
Fuck Microsoft!
Okay.
Fuck!
Rant is over. Follow me on Instagram for more updates. Bye bye.